who's playing, when, and where.
Or read it at Indy1023.org. Supported by Comrade Brewing Company.
Are you a federal employee or retiree? Civilian, military, or postal? Then there's another way for you to support CPR through the combined federal campaign. At givecfc.org, search for Colorado Public Radio. Your gift provides key support for the Colorado reporting you hear on the station. It's your chance to give back. Donate through the combined federal campaign by January 15th and make a difference for our community. Thank you.
Funding for Here and Now comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software, accelerating the pace of engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
From NPR and WBUR Boston, I'm Peter O'Dowd.
And I'm Scott Tong. This is Here and Now. Coming up, our Politics Roundtable on an eventful week for cabinet nominees, including a new pick for Attorney General after Matt Gaetz pulled his name from consideration.
Also, genocide scholar Omer Bartov has changed his mind about the war in Gaza. He says even his left-leaning friends in Israel have hardened their hearts against Palestinians.
He said, after October 7th, I have no room in my heart for their children. This was the kind of shocking statement that I heard.
And ahead of tomorrow night's National Women's Soccer League final, former U.S. star Sam Mewis talks about penalty kicks and pressure.
What seems like such an easy 12-yard kick becomes a real mental task.
Coming up Here and Now.
First, the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Senate confirmation scrutiny over President-elect Trump's new nominee for Attorney General turns to Pam Bondi. NPR's Ryan Lucas has details on Bondi's background.
She's a former Attorney General for the state of Florida, the first woman to hold that position. During that time, unsuccessfully challenged the Affordable Care Act. Before that, she worked for nearly 2 decades as a local prosecutor in Florida. The president-elect said that as a prosecutor, Bondi was very tough on violent criminals. And as a state attorney general, he says that she worked to stop the flow of deadly drugs into Florida. Trump has known Bondi for years. He says she's smart, she's tough, and that she will focus the Justice Department on fighting crime.
NPR's Ryan Lucas. Florida's former top prosecutor was nominated yesterday, hours after another outspoken Trump loyalist, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, withdrew. Debate over the release of a House Ethics Committee report on alleged sexual misconduct and other offenses loomed over Gaetz's confirmation process. Trump has been moving quickly to name people for his incoming administration, but NPR's Tamara Keith reports he's been slow to deal with other aspects of his transition.
The Trump transition has failed to sign at least 3 required formal agreements with the Biden administration, needed to gain access to agencies and classified briefings. It's incredibly important for national security purposes. Danielle Caputo is legal counsel for ethics at the Campaign Legal Center. Instead, they're going to be spending the initial periods in the administration trying to play catch up on a lot of information that they didn't have access to because they failed to sign these memorandums. The Trump transition team says it is still constructively engaged with the Biden administration about the documents, but no decision has been made. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says his country has the right to retaliate against NATO members that armed Ukraine. NPR's Greg Myrie reports Putin has been ramping up threats against Ukraine and the West in a series of recent moves.
Putin spoke on television after Russia fired an experimental ballistic missile into Ukraine, one that had not been used previously in the war. The Russian leader said this was a direct response to Ukrainian attacks earlier this week. That's when Ukraine fired American and British missiles into Russia for the first time. In a pointed warning to Ukraine's supporters, Putin said Russia is within its rights to hit the Western countries that supply those weapons. All this comes just days after Putin lowered the threshold for Russia to use nuclear weapons. He said they could now be employed if the country is facing a, quote, critical threat. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 351 points or more than 0.75%. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Biden came in and changed everything.
This is CPR News and KRCC. I'm Mike Lamb. Colorado Springs city leaders are looking to build on programs they say have reduced the population of homeless people. This as other Front Range cities are seeing numbers of unhoused residents increase. CPR's Dan Boyce reports.
A new 5-year planning document includes a broad range of 60 different action items across 6 focus areas, ranging from law enforcement and encampment cleanup to outreach and shelter expansion to more long-term housing. Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade.
It is important that we strike the balance between compassion and public safety, and that's what this document reflects.
Latest point-in-time surveys show the total unhoused population in the Springs decreased 12% in the last year. In Denver, over that time, the unhoused population rose by 10%. Dan Boyce, CPR News.
Denver's 5.
Could always call him.